Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, comrades and compañeros, welcome back to the Moynihan Report. Lots happened since we took a couple weeks off. I mean, I deserve a vacation. Don't stop it. Stop sending me messages and saying, where are you? Which is both flattering and annoying. But we're back, and a few things happened since we were last here. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm in Manhattan now. I'm in Lower Manhattan. And about a mile from me, maybe a mile and a half. Imagine this. I can't believe I'm saying this. This is a joyous, I mean, there's a lot of trepidation, a lot of fear of what comes next, but let's just jettison that for a second and say the most glorious thing that I can think of, what a great new year it is, that about a mile and a half from me is one of the world's great scumbags. I'm sorry to not use academic language about Nicolas Maduro, but he and his equally scumbaggish wife are sitting in lockup in Brooklyn. Yay. That's we can talk about legality. We can talk about, what the Trump administration did right and wrong. And on this show that I've been pretty rough on the administration, to say the least. But I'm going to abandon that now to be a bit joyful that a man who deserves to be behind bars is behind bars. But so there's a lot of, I'm talking to a lot of people about this. Talking to a lot of Venezuelan friends, these WhatsApp messages I'm getting. Somebody just sent me videos from the car in Caracas. There's like nobody on the streets. I mean, I'm sorry, RT. The big groundswell of Maduro's support is not there because people are nervous, as Reuters reported yesterday, that the regime is targeting people who celebrated the arrest of Nicolas Maduro and his wife. And I want to, before we introduce our terrific guest, I want to say, let me go to this clip that I have from you guys. Not a clip, a screenshot that I have. This is the Merida police in Venezuela. If we can put that up on the screen. This is something from Instagram that somebody sent me today. And this is from the police announcing the arrest of two people. And if you can see that on your screen, the arrest is for people who have celebrating the kidnap of President Maduro. Their back is to the camera. That is from an official government Instagram account in Venezuela. Do you have any illusions about this regime? If you do, they are celebrating as the fake president, the former vice president, fake vice president of a criminal regime, has said, oh, we'll do what you want, Mr. Trump. By the way, let's run around and arrest those people who are celebrating, which something that I was kind of involved in Qatar, but that's a different story. Because today, I want to say I'm an OG, Germania Rodriguez Polio. I followed this woman on Instagram a very long time ago. She's a journalist. She was at Vox, and I saw this Venezuelan, and she was producing this great content. But I look now, I'm like the guy that I knew the band before they were cool. 70,000 followers on Instagram now. Germania, welcome to the show. You're blowing up.
I noticed that, Michael. You were an OG follower
a long time ago.
My speech is not something a lot of people like to hear. So when I got, a well-known person following me, I would notice, and I'm like, why is this guy? Why does he care?
I'm not being creepy. I promise you. I care about Venezuela.
Yeah.
You are Venezuelan. You grew up in Venezuela and Miami, I presume.
Yes, I lived in Caracas until I was 11 when my journalist mom was accused of terrorism.
Yes, and by the way, if I said I wasn't going to lead with this. I actually told you this before we started. But it's actually relevant because the people on Twitter who know nothing about Venezuela, knew nothing about any of these characters before a couple of days ago, and are now Insta experts, Wikipedia scholars, say, oh, Germania, you're listening to her. She has a European name, which is news to me. She's white and her mother is a terrorist. I saw this. I'm sure you saw this too.
Well, but that's unfortunately not new. Right now, the volume is insane, but it goes to show you how citizens of Western democracies go and pick up the abuses, the crimes of dictators, and then use them against you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an old trick. Yeah, I mean, it's something that happened a lot during the Cold War, whether it was the Sandinistas, the Cuban Revolution, et cetera. So there's nothing new here, but it's incredible that in now 2026, you're experiencing this online. Tell me a little bit about how you feel about this stuff. I mean, I know it's a kind of boringly basic question, but just like you wake up in the morning today, what are you feeling about your country that you're not allowed to go back to? You can't, your mother can't go back
No,
to. It's captive by a criminal
correct.
gang, and one of them is in a jail in America.
Well, two of them, but not
Two of
enough.
them. Yeah.
Um, it's been a roller coaster of emotion for us.
Yeah,
Today was kind of the first, I think I was in shock until today,
yeah,
really. Um, I mean, to what happened on Saturday is one of the biggest days in the history of my life and
mm,
that of all of Venezuelans. I
yeah,
get chills thinking about it. Are you
yeah,
kidding me? We woke up and you're telling me never in the life did I think that the Americans were going to go in Caracas and arrest Maduro. I was wrong. I did not see that happening.
yeah,
So, and then to see the picture of our boogeyman
mhm,
in handcuffs,
yeah,
that is beautiful and it's something to celebrate, and it's a first step. But now it's time for the battle to begin because
yeah.
Venezuela is not free. And now it's time for me as a Venezuelan to get out there and let the world know, no, we're not free yet. It's good that the guy, our dictator, is in prison, but now we have a new dictator. Delcy Rodriguez is the new dictator of Venezuela, and
Yeah.
that's the terminology. So right now Venezuela is still under a dictatorship. The regime is more brutal than ever because they're cornered. Colectivos are out on the streets. People are deleting their conversations before they leave their house. Fear is at an all-time high. So it's very bittersweet. The pictures of Maduro and Cilia, no more Rolex and Chanel for them. That's
Mhm.
great. But then I remember, what about my friends that are in prison right now? Are
Yeah.
they being tortured because the regime told them they were going to kill them if the US did anything?
Yeah. I mean, what would you advise? And I mean, everyone is being, I think, appropriately critical of how the Trump administration is responding to some of this stuff. I mean, I think there's probably good sense in Marco Rubio and a lot of other people where there's not very much good sense. But, people like JD Vance, who looks like he was kind of sidelined in this whole operation. So I don't know. We'll find out in reporting in the future. And I've talked to some people about this who do know. But when Trump says what he says about Maria Corina Machado, who won the Nobel Prize, won the last election. Her cutout, because she was not allowed to run, did win. I think is the rightful democratic leader of Venezuela. And Trump says, well, she's not to be trusted. The military doesn't trust her. And apparently, according to the New York Times, this is from a CIA assessment, which CIA has been wrong about a lot of things over the years in Latin
Yeah,
America. So I don't put a lot of faith in that. But does that, the joy, is it tempered in a way
of
by
course, that
some of
was
the
the first
comments?
time.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly, yeah. But is that
How
tempered in some way by the comments from the administration?
But of course, and that's just another part of the Venezuelan tragedy.
Yeah,
Even our ally right now, who we are thankful for because no one else ever cared,
yeah,
is a complicated ally.
yeah,
The messaging is chaotic. You have Stephen Miller, who does not wish the best for Venezuela. We are aware of that. The
yeah.
Americans want to tell us, oh, you're silly thinking Stephen Miller cares about you. No, no, no. We are politically mature. We know what's going on here. We are hoping that Marco Rubio takes the reins. Stephen Miller said Marco Rubio is taking the reins. Now, on the Maria Corina thing, it's at first when I see that Trump dismissing her in the way that he did, carelessly,
Yeah.
those statements do not help our cause because the citizens of America don't understand what he was saying the way that I can understand it.
Yeah.
I think he was saying Maria Corina doesn't have support in the institutions or in the military, which she doesn't, because that's the whole point of a brutal dictatorship and why we need help to get out.
Correct.
It's all she has is the support of the people. But people don't know that Maria Corina Machado won a primary. She was elected as the leader of this movement.
Yeah.
And Trump's words, what was my justification for asking the US for help? We have an elected government. This is not regime change. This is not Iraq. This is not Libya. We held an election. They stole the election. Well, Trump is not helping that case, certainly.
Hmm.
Now, on the other side of that, it's not realistic for Maria Corina to lead a transition.
Hmm. Who would
I
you like to see lead I mean, I've seen you tweeting about Delcy, and I'm going to get to her in a second, and how the American media has covered her and I think misunderstood her in enormous ways. She is a SEBIN operative, as a secret police operative, as a vice presidential.
He started the law against hate, which is
Yes.
the post that you were showing of the people getting arrested. It's because of a law started by Delcy.
Yeah. But who is and look, nobody wants to see a disastrous transition. Everybody wants to avoid civil war. I mean, Venezuela has been through so much violence in the past 26 years that it is mind-boggling. I mean, years where there were 25,000.
One side has been receiving violence for 20
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, but you also, I mean, not even in a political context, in the context of 25,000 murders. Correct. So bad, as I was talking to a friend about just about 30 minutes ago, so bad that they refused to release the figures, and journalists had to go down to the single morgue in Caracas and ask people, why are you here? And then, get the numbers that way. So, I mean, Venezuela's seen violence, but we've seen transitions that have been ugly. We hope it would be something like Nicaragua in 89 and 90. That was a pretty smooth trip, but look where Nicaragua ended up, is that Ortega's back. What is the scenario that you see, that your parents see? Your mother is a journalist, your friends are journalists. They say this would be, in a perfect world, the best kind of road forward.
In a perfect world, there is no perfect world here.
I know.
There's no perfect situation. The situation is so complicated. Why is this not like Panama? Because this is a system that comes from Cuba, that comes from the Soviet Union. It's a system. It's not one person. That's why it survived Chavez. Listen, what I would like to now see off of what the Trump administration is saying, they have said if Delcy Rodriguez doesn't do as they say, she's going to have a fate worse than Maduro's. I hope that's true. And then I hope that Diosdado Cabello is also removed somehow. I would like it if the Americans came in and took them too. That would make things easier. However, it's not enough. Americans would have to have peacekeeping missions for Maria Corina Machado to take over a transition. And I think in any transition, you're going to have someone from the regime. But to choose the most radical ones makes no sense. There are others. There's Hector Rodriguez. There, there is the what we call the fake opposition. They could be part of the transition. They go to the fake Congress and they do their thing. They remain a part of the system. That would be an ideal scenario, to remove Delcy and Diosdado and work with the ones who are less connected to China, Russia, and Iran, and have less ideological desires.
Yeah, I mean, listen to Germania on this, because the complications of Venezuelan politics. I have not talked to a single person who has not uttered the phrase fake opposition. And, I was at the primaries when Enrique Capriles was nominated, who is now in the National Assembly. I mean, this is a wild turn of events. But by the way, the complication, here's an example for people. The complication of Venezuelan politics is, when I was first getting into this, there was a young student leader who's now very, very prominent, and his name was Stalin Gonzalez. And I was like, Stalin? I was here on the other side of this? Very complicated politics. When the guy opposing the socialist dictatorship, his name is Stalin. But, this is what happens in Venezuela. But, I think that's right. And you make a very important point, and one that I get the instinct that get Maria Corina there. She's the rightful person that should be in the Miraflores Palace. But at the same time, you don't keep a dictatorship in place for 26 years, particularly after 2002, where there was a short-lived coup, Pedro Carmona comes as the leader for a very brief period of time. You don't do that as a former army officer who himself engaged in a coup in 1992.
Correct. He's the only one. People accuse us, you want to bomb your people? Honey, it was Chavez who bombed his own people. Yeah,
100 people died on that coup attempt.
Yeah.
The very famous thing.
Way more than during the U.S. operation.
Yes,
Saturday.
And those were Venezuelans, not Cubans.
Let's talk about that invasion. But that's so important for this transition talk. First of all, let's establish something. The Trump administration is saying they are running Venezuela. That's not the case at all.
Not the case at all. Not the case at all. I mean, one of the things, and I don't know, this is something you've been talking to people about too, is that the first thing that one should do Trump has very bad instincts, political instincts publicly, where he starts talking about oil immediately because he's a businessman and he's like, the oil, he has no idea what he should say. I mean, in the past, people talked about human rights and they didn't give a shit about it. So, I mean, points for
Good point.
not caring and being honest about it. But I would love to see someone go to Caracas and say, okay, we're not going to arrest you. We're going to try to get this transition, democracy back. 900 political prisoners. Release them. Actually, there's going to be more by the end of this week.
Well, I've been saying that has to be how Trump proves, oh, you're running Venezuela, so you're telling the media, you're claiming victory. Well, release the political prisoners.
Yeah.
Close El Helicoide, the biggest
Yeah.
torture center in Latin America.
Yeah.
As of now, Delcy Rodriguez has shown us nothing. The contrary. Diosdado Cabello's on the streets every day saying that to doubt is to commit treason and screw the United States. That's what's happening right now. So, yes, that's what we Venezuelans are pushing for. You are not controlling Venezuela right now. If you want to control it, you need to get some signs, and this would be a good one. Yeah.
I mean, Germania, I speak Swedish. That's the foreign language I speak because I lived in Sweden. So my Spanish is very bad, to almost non-existent. And I was watching, it's so funny because it kept cutting out the BTB, the state propaganda channel.
You were watching that? God.
Yeah, I that's how I watch Mario Silva. I try to learn Spanish by watching people talk about Lenin. It's very entertaining. But I see in this, and Mario points out something that I thought it was absolutely stunning. And I said, my Spanish is so bad. I must be misunderstanding this. Is a sea of people. A sea of people. It's one shot of 100 people. But I see the hat. Dudar et traición, is that what it is? Dudar et traición.
Dudar et traición, that's his catchphrase.
That's his catchphrase. This is Diosdado, basically the number 2 in the real one of the executioners. And that means, translate that for people, because it's absolutely astonishing to me that these people are wearing these hats. They don't even pretend.
It's so Stalinist.
Yeah,
to
it's
doubt
Stalinist.
To commit treason. And they
doubt is treason. And that is a hat being worn by the people that are not only in the regime, which hasn't fallen, and their psychotic supporters and these people in colectivos. And the colectivos are just armed gangs on motorcycles that intimidate people all over the country to remain in line with the regime.
Those are the people today intimidating, oppressing Venezuelans. There's so much misinformation. There are people who think like the US occupied Venezuela or something. Yeah. Some people message me that there's been hundreds of civilian deaths.
Yes.
It's insane. The only people killing Venezuelans today are the colectivos on the streets. So
I want to talk about this, and I want my lovely producer to put some stuff up on the screen. We're going to do a quick round robin of 7 images. We'll go through them quick. And they're all from one place. They're all from the New York Times. And I don't think the New York Times has been especially bad on this. I have been someone paying attention to the terrible coverage of Venezuela for so many years, sympathetic coverage for so many years, until weirdly, like one of the worst offenders with The Guardian. And then you had Rory Carroll, the correspondent, produced one of the best books on Venezuela called Comandante, who really got the so-called revolution. So there's good stuff out there, but I just wanted to give you a sense. And I don't think that this stuff is necessarily malicious. I want to be clear about that. I think some of this stuff is ignorance. We're going to start with the first one. And this was an amazing headline. Venezuela braces for economic collapse from US blockade. Braces for economic collapse. Darlings, have you not seen the economic collapse that has been going on since 1999, despite having the highest oil prices at one point $150 a barrel? And you go to Petare and it's like, geez, this is not, I mean, go to a place, by the way, like Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. These are all authoritarian regimes. Everything's sparkling and fresh and new because they have all this oil money. Then go to Venezuela. So that was an interesting one to me. Like, guys, so some of these are borderline, but it comes to a crescendo. The next one.
It's so harmful for the cause.
So it's terrible. This is, who is Delcy Rodriguez? This is the subhead, established a reputation as a shrewd operator. Okay, so that's fine. I would disagree with the framing of it, but it gets worse. And then this is the next one, the third one. how Trump fixed on a Maduro loyalist as a new leader. His Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, known for stabilizing Venezuela's economy. This I could argue with. It's not true, and this is a repeated BS claim. The next one, this is another subhead. Acting President Delcy Rodriguez struck a more diplomatic tone. She's being diplomatic while people are being arrested on the streets. The next one is the very same thing. She's softening her tone. Softening from what, guys? Where are we starting? What's the starting point? But we're getting to this crescendo. And the next one, Delcy Rodriguez, Venezuela's new leader, boasts leftist credentials. That sounds pretty nice. Building bridges with Venezuela's business community. This woman sounds incredible. By the way, no one's pointed out this. I'm putting this for a reason because nobody else is pointing this stuff out. And then the last one, which lit up Venezuelan Twitter, by the way.
There it is.
There it is. The moderate Delcy Rodriguez.
But and also don't forget that photo shoot, the fancy photo shoot. The New York Times went to Venezuela and
Correct.
they gave her a photo shoot and they did not speak to the opposition. And they said Capriles was the opposition leader.
Yes.
And that's the context of that.
Yes, and the opposition leader who was the opposition candidate and did poorly, horribly, and is now somebody who's in the fake National Assembly. Now, I want to ask you about the American reaction to this, basically in the media. You're a media watcher. You're a part of the media. Have you been as, maybe this is a loaded question. It's kind of a loaded question. Have you been as disappointed as I have been at a lot of this coverage? And, what is kind of, distressed you most about the people who know nothing? And I always say this, you realize how shoddy the media is when they talk about something you know about. This is your home country.
Yeah.
You know about this. What has been your impression of how the media has handled this?
I'll tell you a
news?
story. I worked in a mainstream media outlet. And I was forced to quit my job because I posted a video criticizing the New York Times coverage of Delcy Rodriguez. And I was saying, I don't understand why they're positioning Delcy Rodriguez. And they asked me to delete the video and I quit instead.
Wait, hold on. Have you spoken about this publicly? Is it okay to?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
But
I mean, we can find out the media organization. What was it?
It was the Daily Mail, which is so silly because I worked there because I already knew that you can't work at CNN and talk about Venezuela's dictatorship. And that's why I work there. And they did it to me there too.
The Daily Mail, which is in England, you call a Little Englander paper, a kind of, populist, anti-immigration paper.
It's a tabloid. It's a right-wing tabloid.
It's a right-wing tabloid. What was the argument that they made?
Listen to this, that it meant that I couldn't be trusted to be objective in future coverage of the New York Times. I was their chief reporter, their top talent. And it's the Daily Mail. Look at their headlines. So very, very strange. Yeah.
That is the moment where I start believing in conspiracies, that somebody is, leaning on them or something, because that is not the word that you would associate with the Daily Mail, objective coverage. I mean,
well, that's what I said. The whole reason I worked here, I work at this embarrassing place is so I can speak about Venezuela, because you're right wing and now you're not going to let me. And so I quit and thank God for that, because today I can be talking to you about the realities of what's going on in Venezuela.
And they would have objected to that if.
Oh, well, no, let me tell you the end of the story. So then I said, okay, I quit. My last day is in 3 weeks. And then I went and did an interview with Friends 24 English as an independent journalist.
Yep.
Nothing to do with this outlet. And the next day I came in, I worked. And then at the end of the day, they said, today is your last day. And I was escorted out by HR for that offense.
Wow. Who is that? I mean, again, I want to be clear. This is not from any denouncing anyone in particular. It's me asking a question because we can find this out fairly quickly. Who's the editor-in-chief now of the Daily Mail?
Her name is Katie Davis.
Okay. Well, I might. Maybe I'll email her. Just a question. I want to email a question. I mean, that seems crazy to me. I mean, the Daily Mail of all places.
Story, since I have never told the full story with names, especially in English media. So I'll add what they said after I started saying this. That it was like, well, but you also called in sick, so that's why you were escorted out. Yeah. So let's put that out there. That's what they say. and that they
Yeah.
didn't fire me. It's very clear they did not fire me. I quit instead of deleting the video. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. But they were pressuring you. And of
no,
course,
and it had been, and if I got an invitation about, they wanted me to talk about Venezuela, they're like, well, what are you going to say? And my editor doesn't know anything about Venezuela. So how are you going to tell me what but anyway, this has been my entire career for 10 years in the mainstream media. That's why I didn't work at CNN. I'm an amazing news reporter. I'm good at it, but I did not want to go silent on social media about my personal tragedy in order to work at the fancy outlets like CNN at the New York Times. And that's a given. You cannot, my Twitter. That's not
yeah.
something that I could do and get a job at a place like the New York Times or CNN.
But that is amazing to me, that the extreme difficulties your mother experienced, and all the journalists, talking to our mutual friend Daniel about, I asked him to explain what a cadena was so people could understand how the media works.
Triggered.
Yeah, that every station and every radio station and everything that's not on satellite or cable is taken over by the government and the government.
And you're watching your show. When I was a kid, you're watching your cartoons, and Chavez was like, nah, no more cartoons.
Yeah.
You watch me.
Yeah, that's how you create a generation of kids who hate the dictatorship. One of the many ones, but it's incredible that Chavez did it in a kind of slow, piecemeal way by closing down RCTV and Globovisión, Venevisión, all of these places that were done, and El Universal is bought by some shadowy thing. Obviously it's very different.
Was the opposition channel now.
Yeah, and yes, and I had a friend on the Fifth Column, a Venezuelan, who said he had been talking to people whose television stations were shut down in 2013 and they want to come back. So there's some people making moves. That would be a great thing. I hope that happens. But that was a kind of under the veil of legality. We're taking away RCTV's license. You guys have licenses in America too. But then under Maduro, it became much worse and much more explicit, people just getting arrested. Whereas now you're in America and you still, in the media environment, have to worry about your opinion about Chavismo? That's crazy to me.
Yeah, and that was exactly my thinking. I wrote a piece for Caracas Chronicles about this experience, and I explained what went through my mind. When the editor tells me to delete the video, I say, okay, because I'm scared and I need to pay rent. But then I go to my desk and I'm like, no, my mom didn't leave Venezuela on a boat fleeing Chavez for this, for me to be censored in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is. I was on MSNBC the day that Chavez died, the day after Chavez died, with Chris Hayes. And Chris is very much a man of the left. But he was even offended by all the people in the panel. I was the only one criticizing Chavez. And he's like, people talk about inflation, and Chris actually interrupted. He's like, 30% inflation is really bad. It's like, guys, I mean, how are you kind of intellectually justifying all this stuff?
Well, how they justify it now, it's because of the US attacks. At that time, there weren't even sanctions. So I don't even know if they were bringing it up, because now they accuse the economic collapse on sanctions.
Yeah. Well, that's the Cuban thing. One of the reasons I've always advised of lifting the sanctions on Cuba, because I have total faith in the bankruptcy of socialist economics in the Cuban model in particular, not Sweden and Denmark and whatever, is that you take away that excuse that all of these people have for the utter
the same thing.
It's like
I should support that just to take away the excuse.
Yeah, I mean, they'll find another one but to any time that you can focus on the venality and the corruption of the leadership, because the Chavismo is interesting, because if you go back, and I was talking about this with somebody today, if you go back to 2006 and 2007, you see stories in the Washington Post, stories in the global media, in The Economist, about shortages in Venezuela. And this is $50 a barrel of oil, which is very good at the time. It gets up to about 140. And there's so much money in the country, and there's still shortages. There's no sanctions, there's no nothing. When can we acknowledge that this is a mismanaged economy and a kleptocracy? It's just a very simple thing. When you can't convince people of that, they're not worth talking to. I want to play you one clip too. I want to talk about people on the right, the American right, which I was surprised at how divided they are on the not the issue of the coming to Venezuela, and just the issue of Maduro in general. This is astonishing to me. Tucker Carlson, as we know, has defended Maduro, and he had released an episode today, and for my sins and for the good people out there in the internet land. I watched it, so you didn't have to. And I just have a very brief clip here that I want you to react to, which I thought was really astonishing. This is Tucker Carlson from today.
Well, I mean, you still have a chance to pivot against the neocons because the Bibi people, literally Bibi's office, is pushing for MCM, this Machado lady, the gay marriage lady, the Klaus Schwab acolyte.
That's it. No more than that. It's Israel.
I saw this, yeah. But it's the best example of horseshoe theory. And I love that they're so obvious about it. And now they're united through their hatred of Israel. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson are the same thing as Zoran Memdani types people. And I love telling them that when the left now uses the argument of Palestine, Maria Corina Machado loves Israel. I'm like, oh, okay, so you're like Tucker Carlson. Like you and Tucker Carlson are the same thing.
Yeah,
okay.
It's socially conservative in Venezuela.
They are united in what really concerns me for our society, honestly, is this hatred of the West. They think Russia is as bad, that the US is as bad as Russia, that there's no great comparison between the two systems. Both the far left and the far right think this because they both are conspiracy theorists.
Yes.
They think that the Mossad is behind everything.
Yeah, I didn't know how they could connect Venezuela to Israel, but they did it rather quickly. And, you know, the Russia thing is it's a good thing to bring up because, you know, the same argument is made about Russia is that it's a socially conservative Christian country, which if you've been to Russia, you understand that it's not that at all. And even if it were that, it's also a dictatorship, and that in a game of rock, paper, scissors covers and breaks everything.
Tucker Carlson is confusing a brutal dictatorship with conservatism. Why is there no gay marriage in Venezuela?
Well, you would think that conservatives would want to argue against this and say our ideology is not Chavismo.
They're not conservatives anymore. We are beyond it, and it's really freaking me out. And those connections, Chavez was very smart. You were wondering how they can make the Israel connection. Chavez was building ties with the pro-Palestine cause since the beginning because and Delcy Rodriguez, all she talks about is Israel-Palestine Zionism because she's smart. She knows that is the way to get Western leftists
correct
come to her side.
Yeah, Germania, I'm so glad you said this. I mentioned this the other day on the fifth column, is that people did tend to overlook that Delcy said it has the smell or the tint of Zionism.
Tint of Zionism.
Yeah, which is an incredible thing to say. Why would you say that? It's like, that is exactly right. It's chum in the water to people on the radical left that you want the people out there in front of the Brooklyn lockup with their Palestinian scarves on, and she's given them a signal in the same way that Vladimir Putin talks about trans issues. Like, he doesn't care about this stuff.
Correct.
Makes this stuff about trans issues because stupid American conservatives and stupid American leftists say, oh, he's one of us, we want to be on. And also, it's American imperialism, which is the worst thing in the world. So therefore, we're on your side. It's not about, I mean, you can do this, right? You could say, I think this is illegal. I think this is a bad policy. I hate Maduro. I want change. I don't think this is the way to do it. Fine, I'm happy to have you. I'm happy to have the conversation. This is great. But how frequently do you get somebody who doesn't just say that, says Maduro is misunderstood, Chavismo is misunderstood, they alleviated poverty in, you know, you don't have to do it, guys, because it makes you look incredibly stupid and like foaming at the mouth, psychotic ideologues. Where that is like, I mean, I'm really glad you pointed that out because
they do it to Iranians too. It's important to note that we are all victims of the same pro-Russia dictatorship systems, and the Iranians are going through the same thing. They do it to the Ukrainians as well.
Yes, they do. The Ukrainians, Iranians, the Cubans. I mean, I've had how many conversations with people about, you know, the one line that I always like to spring on people who tell me, like in Venezuela, Mission the Robinson kind of, everyone, they can all read now. It's slightly different in Venezuela, but in Cuba, do you know what the literacy rate is in Cuba? There's so many things wrong with that, considering also the figures come from the government. But what is the point of having high literacy when you can't read what you want? If you cannot get Orwell 1984 in the bookshop, or have money to buy a book at a bookshop, or even have a bookshop that is independent of the government, there's no purpose in it.
But being a doctor if you're a slave, according to the United Nations.
Yes. I mean, it's great. You guys had all of these doctors coming to Venezuela from Cuba.
Yeah, half of them were spies. Half of them were the guys protecting Maduro when they
Correct.
came in.
Half of them are spies, and the other half are trying to escape to Colombia.
Correct. You know
So,
how
I
many
mean,
Cuban? It's so. It should be obvious.
yeah.
These are
No,
people that have told us they're modern slaves.
yeah. It is, you know, and by the way, on the literacy thing, just a footnote for you people out there who hear this because it's so common. Cuba in 1959 had a higher literacy rate than Spain. So the floor is what you're interested in, is where does it start? It had 0%? No, it was extremely literate country. It was a wealthy literate country. The same thing is true of Venezuela.
That's right. That's interesting you're saying that, because then it's the same thing they do to us. What do they tell me today? That Chavez started public health and education in Venezuela. That Chavez nationalized the oil industry.
Yeah.
We already had all of that. Chavez didn't create anything except Telesur.
Yeah. Yeah, Telesur, which is, for those who don't know, a propaganda channel that every other, you know, shitbag left-wing government is part of. You know, Nicaragua is part of it.
Of course.
Yeah, in Rafael Correa at one point, they were all part of it.
Mm-hmm.
What is that argument that you get from people most often who, whether it's in media or sort of upper middle class, college educated, it's always the more educated, the dumber you are about Venezuela and Cuba. But what is the argument that really rankles and really pisses you off when people say, well, some gringo is going to tell you what it's like in Venezuela, or what your country has experienced that you don't see, that actually it's quite good? What is the most common one?
Well, you know, this is a tough question because today it's different. Today they're obsessed with the oil. They're obsessed with the oil. The U.S. wants your oil. But usually it's a similar one, that they don't believe us when we say, no, our country was destroyed because we voted for an authoritarian populist who turned dictator. And we did it ourselves. They're like, no, the U.S. somehow must be to blame.
Yeah, and it's true. And
it's the fault of U.S. imperialism. And they don't even, of course, people with democracy privilege, you tell them, no, it's Cuban imperialism. They don't imagine because Cuba's poor. Fair question. It's a great situation where a poor small island took over a rich, bigger country. It happened. But they don't want to hear that, because in their narrative, they want the U.S. to be the bad guy. That's what's cool to them. They want to side with what they see as the weak guy. And to them, the U.S. could never be not the strong one and the one that was defeated. In this case, in Venezuela, the U.S. lost because they lost us as an ally. Yeah.
No, I mean, it is mostly in colleges that you get this stuff. I mean, I got it.
I went to NYU as a Venezuelan, and a professor told me that Chavez was good and Maduro was the problem. That's another one. There's so many.
Yeah.
They'll tell you, no, Chavez was amazing, but the issue is Maduro. Maduro is a dictator, but Chavez was great. Characters like Eva Gollinger, who now that's her story after she sold our dictatorship under Hugo Chavez to the world.
Can I remind you of something that I just remembered right now? Is incredible. I haven't heard that name in a long time. She blocked me on Twitter. She wrote a book called the Chavez Code, or Venezuela Code, or something, about the coup in 2002. There is a good book about that, people. It is weirdly published by The Nation magazine that has been very friendly to the Venezuelan regime. There's an academic named Brian Nelson who wrote a book called The Silence in the Scorpion, which is one of the best books about Venezuela. It is a kind of a TikTok of what happened in 2002, and it blows up all of those myths that come from this Irish documentary called The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. There's a Venezuelan response documentary called The X-Ray of a Lie, which is also good. But there's a lot of BS out there. But this kind of idea, when it comes from academics, and, you know, it's the search, isn't it? There's a professor that was where I went to school named Paul Hollander, who wrote a book called Political Pilgrims, about these Americans and West Europeans. They're like on pilgrimages trying to find the better society, you know, and Soviet, that failed. The Maoist China ended in absolute...
They want to believe.
They want to believe.
So bad to believe, and they want to believe that the current system is oppressing them because there is something better. And if only we tried it the right way. I mean, I do love the argument of, listen, it didn't work in Venezuela where we had oil to throw.
Yes.
Like, what else can you try?
It's the greatest counter-argument.
But then they say, no, that wasn't real socialism, because they're obsessed with their textbook ideas. And that's similarly how they're obsessed with international law now. Like, why do you care so much? Like, nobody's mourning Maduro. If you want to go against what the Trump administration is doing, I would advise Democrats to hold him accountable on the fact that the dictatorship still stands, that he has not done the objective yet. Go after him on that. Delcy Rodriguez is worse. But you're going to keep fighting that Maduro, he was kidnapped. It's not okay to take Maduro. This is also why the Democrats, like, they like to lose. That's another topic, but.
Yeah. I mean, there was not congressional authorization for Grenada.
But it's been done before, no?
It's been, I mean, Grenada, no. Haiti under Bill Clinton. I mean, there was a UN thing with that, but there was no congressional. Then you got pushback from the congressional thing. Panama. I mean, this is a very common thing. I mean, Barack Obama in Libya, it was a NATO thing, but the drone strikes. I mean, this is a common thing about international law, but you wonder if it's not a war, people. I mean, there's an operation, but there's not a war.
There's not a war.
No Americans have died. There's no American boots on the ground. Don't pay attention to Trump's bluster. What happens, we'll see. But how do you say to Congress, I need you to approve this nighttime raid? And it's just an impossible thing, which it leaks in 2 minutes, and there's intelligence paying attention. I mean,
listen, Cuba, Nicaragua, all the dictatorships that help Maduro, they don't follow international law. That's the issue too in this battle of democracies versus dictatorships. Democracies have so many more limits. For example, all Delcy Rodriguez has to do is outlast Trump. Not a hard thing to do.
Not a hard thing to do. No, not a hard thing to do, but you know, the pressure has to be applied. I mean, a friend of mine, I don't know what your feelings on this, or if you pay attention to Cuba beyond their very deep involvement in your own country. But a friend of mine said, you know, if the American government successfully cuts off oil shipments to Cuba, you know, people say, oh, it's going to be bad for China. China gets like 4% of its oil from Venezuela. It's not going to have that big of an effect on Cuba. That's the lifeline for a regime that's been around since 1959. I mean, do you have some hope there?
First of all, I care so much about the Cuban people. We are one.
Yeah.
What's happening to us is what happened to them. Even the treatment from first worlders to us. They have decided that our story is not good for them and to put us aside. And that there was no consequence to ignoring Cuba that has now spread to 3 countries. That being said, I think that's why Cuba, my theory is that Cuba turned Maduro in. Cuba cannot survive without Venezuelan oil. Already, they have basically entered another special period just because of Venezuela struggling. So listen, I think the Cuban regime that's very, very well trained by the Soviet Union, that's how they've survived that long. This is by design. They starve their population by design, not because they're inept. And I think they said, listen, if we don't do something here, they're not going to let the oil get to us. And Cuba is dying. We can't keep the lights on. Let's let Maduro go so we can try to save ourselves somehow with Delcy.
Yeah. I mean, does it worry you that the administration, I mean, look, maybe it works out for the best. Maybe this kind of interim period with Delcy and Diosdado and these people in the regime who are, I mean, as you pointed out, themselves some of the most brutal people. I would say more, I mean, the Maduro comes across when he's dancing on stage as a kind of doofus, inept, which he's not, by the way. He
did not have as much power as Delcy and Diosdado do.
Yeah.
Today I was talking to my mom and we were saying, you know who's irreplaceable? Diosdado.
Yeah.
And that's a rare character in these systems, because again, they build them to survive everything. It survived Chavez, it survived Castro, but Diosdado's hold on the colectivos, his control of violence in the country. So Maduro.
Explain to people who don't know who Diosdado Cabello is. Like, just
let's go all the way back. Diosdado Cabello was part of Hugo Chavez's bombing of his own people in the 90s. He was out on the streets doing his coup, killing people. That's the history of Diosdado Cabello. So he's one of the most radicals. Ideological, truly. Diosdado is the one that has never even inched close to any negotiation. The hardest liner there. and he has had all sorts of positions during Chavez first, but it was really after Chavez that he takes on this mantle. He is really the charismatic one left. Yeah. Maduro doesn't have, Chavez was so fun. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no,
I mean, he's a TV star.
He was a TV star. Diosdado was on TV a lot too, and I think
Diosdado has his show, and he really is the heir of Chavez culturally.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the show that Chavistas watch. That's what makes them laugh.
Yeah.
And today, Diosdado, I think, is Diosdado versus Delcy.
Yeah.
And Diosdado, I bet you did not like Delcy's lower tone against the US. Diosdado is the one that says to doubt is to commit treason.
Treason, yeah. I think one of the things that if people were paying attention and interested in this sort of thing, to look at modern propaganda models, this was not what happened in Cuba. Now, obviously, Fidel Castro starts speaking and you're going home 9 hours later. These are marathon speeches, and Chavez learned that from him. But the use of television in Venezuela, whether it's the cadena taking over all the networks, but everybody having a TV show, and the same thing is true, Maduro had a TV show, he has no charisma. Chavez's show, one very good piece of journalism that people should pay attention to, I was surprised, is PBS Frontline did a documentary, which is very, very good, and there's a Spanish version, English version, on A lo Presidente, which was Chavez's TV show. And it is a totally fascinating watch. And you're right, he was a charismatic guy. He would read poetry from memory. He would talk about, left-wing political theory. And it was like droning and never ending. And you have this captive audience of people who are there with their red hats and their red shirts, just smiling like idiots. But he was good at it. But the entire—
He would take calls from people?
Take calls from people. It was like a call-in show. It's wild to watch. But it's an entertainment dictatorship in the sense that BTV, the government propaganda channel, is an astonishing watch if you tune in. They stream it live. It's offline today, which is kind of curious and interesting. But you can watch it online. In the stuff that they play, it is like they're creating this alternative universe where everybody in the government of a certain level is kind of a TV star. And it's something very, very unique. The Sandinistas didn't do that. They had no facility for media at all. And this is something really unique to the Venezuelan revolution, which has been so disastrous to Venezuela. But they kind of got it in a way for how you don't survive for 26 years.
You gotta discuss La Hojilla, your favorite show.
Yes, the razor blade. Yeah.
That's what started, and Diosdado does it now. What does Diosdado do? He selects an opposition figure on Twitter, and then he spends the show showing their tweets, mocking them, saying they're going to prison, that they're going to take away their citizenship, and it's a public shaming, lynching situation.
It is. Germania's, you listen to her on this one, it's incredible. The La Hojilla, the show that's hosted by a guy named Mario Silva, they would get things from SEBIN, the secret police, like taped calls of opposition leaders and play them on television. Imagine living in a political system where if you oppose, wrote a tweet, wrote a Substack or something, that the CIA, the NSA would capture your calls and then it would be played on Fox News. I mean, that is the culture.
People loved it.
Yeah. It's a reality show, like a sort of dictatorial reality show in its way, which is bizarre. But I don't want to keep it much longer, Germania. So we can end it. Oh shit, my mic just fell down. I'm sorry. Very unprofessional. But we can end it on this, and I hope to have you come back and update us on some of this stuff. Is that we are in this phase of trepidation for those of us who care about the country. What are you looking forward to and say, okay, this is what I suspect is going to happen? The great thing about Venezuelans, if you don't know Venezuelans, they're on WhatsApp trading theories and images and videos constantly. What are you hearing? What is it that you're expecting or hoping for in the coming week, months?
That's very important that you said that, because they're also saying that we haven't fought for our freedom.
Yeah.
All of us, in any way we can, on WhatsApp, watching TV, anything we can do. What do I hope for? My primary concern right now is the political prisoners in Venezuela. They are in the most danger they have ever been. So my hope is that we see some sign of that what Trump has told the country is true, and that Delcy Rodriguez has agreed to follow his orders.
Yeah.
I hope we see that within the next weeks at the very longest. If not, sadly, we Venezuelans have been through several pushes for democracy before, and that's why we want it hit while it's hot, because the world has never cared about us. The fact that the news are about Venezuela. My concern is that the situation dies down, and my biggest concern, even before anything happened, was that Trump, as he has done in the past, because he also has he has populist tendencies that are similar to the ones
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That he sings victory.
Yeah.
And that tells the world, Delcy is great, all good, we won Nobel Peace Prize, and he does his little dance like Maduro does it, and that's it. And that we stay with Delcy, and let me tell you, if that happens, who's gonna help us then?
Yeah, I mean, it's an important point, and I don't necessarily love ending on a dour negative point, but I want to be clear about this. And it is I think I'm happy the process that has started, and hopefully it continues. But we have to be honest about this. Donald Trump does not care about Venezuelans. He cares about votes. He cares about prizes. He cares about victory parades and things like that. So the reason that so many Venezuelans, as I'm sure most of you listeners and viewers have figured out, want Marco Rubio to be more involved is not because they love Marco Rubio, but because he's a Cuban American and he has talked about these communist dictatorships, and he does care. And I think that that's actually true, that he does. So all of his missteps aside, all my criticisms that I've had of Rubio over the years kind of go into the back seat to say, you know, this is the guy that we hope can push this stuff forward. But the problem
is there is hope.
There is hope.
It could happen. And that's what I want to push as well, because everyone is already like, oh, nothing happened. Now Delcy's dictator. It could still happen, I believe, also. And I do want to say, because a lot of people are like, you don't care that Trump wants to take your oil. First of all, we haven't seen the wealth of that oil in so long. They use it to oppress us. That being said, Trump talks about oil. Well, if Trump cares about getting our oil, that actually aligns with our interests. He's not going to recover that oil industry with Delcy Rodriguez and Diosdado Cabello there.
No.
So,
no, and not without an enormous outlay of money over about 10 years. And this
oil companies are not going to go into Venezuela as things stand. So if Donald Trump wants oil, cool, we're happy to work with you. You're going to have to get rid of Diosdado and Delcy. So that's my hope, that our objectives align there.
The bad political instincts of Trump of immediately talking about oil because that's the only thing he understands, and because it's a business, and this is business. I don't think that that's top of the list, considering all the limitations of extracting very heavy
and that's
crude.
What people are not getting.
Yeah,
like
it's not
heard that the US would do was they have to rebuild the entire thing before we can pay them back in any way.
Yes, and I'm a friend of mine who's in the oil industry, and I had lunch with him today, was talking about how difficult and how long of a process it will be to get. I mean, look, there's the capacity to produce what it used to produce millions and millions of barrels of oil a day, and nothing even close to that. And that's a long time. And by the way, one final point on this, and I'm sorry to be super didactic about all this stuff, because I just want people to understand this, is that the reason the oil industry is in such distress in Venezuela is because of rotting infrastructure, because the government is terrible. There's one electrical grid in the entire country,
Chavez fired the executives on Aló Presidente for arresting him.
Yes. So
with
there
a
was
whistle, he said the names, and then he rang the whistle, fired.
Yeah. So he fires all of the people from PDVSA, the state-run oil company, and replaces them with flunkies who, guess what, don't know how to run an oil company, and the whole thing collapses. So there we go. Germania Rodriguez Polio. I'm so happy that we could get you on, and I want to revisit it, and I want to bring you on the other show too for the other guys to hear you, and we'll be checking in with you soon. But you know, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be happy and positive.
No, and thank you so much for caring at all. Honestly, we are not used to this. So
yeah. No, it's a mental illness.
I'm sad for you as well, because all we do is lose in the Venezuela cause.
Yeah, I never pick a winner in life. I'm always on the
exactly
the Ukrainian side, the Venezuelan side. Anyway, Thank you, Germania, and thank all of you for tuning in. And this, look, I think this is an important episode to do, and I want to fill in some of that background stuff because it's an important issue to a lot of people. America, people think that we're in a war. It's not only clarifying that; it's clarifying the country that we are having these, shall we say, in a very gentle way, difficulties with, that has been torturing the Venezuelan people for 26 years. And I'm going to give you one final thing, is that 9 million people have left. 9 million people. Do you know what the equivalent of that is in America? 340 million people. It's about 100 million people decided to leave and flee to neighboring countries. 100 million people. Imagine that proportion. And that's not because of the success of the Chavista revolution. So write me and I'll tell you books to read and people to pay attention to, and one of those is Germania. Instagram is great, Twitter is great, and I see her on the media now, which makes me very happy. And the rest of you, go over to the Moynihan Report, at the Moynihan Report on YouTube. And I know most of you listen in audio, that's where we get a lot of our stuff, but go to the YouTube too. You can see me, I look terrible, but you can, it's horrible. Why would you want to do that? Go stay at the audio. But we will see you soon, back on Thursday, with an episode that I kind of want to tell you who it is, but I'm not going to. But it's going to be pretty great. So we'll see you on Thursday. Bye.